All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jamil Zabane, and thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to talk a lot about recall marketing. I think it's a great opportunity for us to win new business, whether in the service drive or even potentially on the sales side. Hopefully today I can walk you guys through some strategies that you can implement on an everyday basis, as well as potentially show you a bigger campaign that you can implement here in the next month or two. So without further ado, tell you a little bit more about myself. My name is Jamil Zabane. I am the president here at JNL Marketing. To my right, I wanted to make it a little bit fun, right? We're all going through COVID and stuff. So on the right-hand side is some pictures with me and my family at our favorite breakfast spot, Waffle House. Some of you guys are probably laughing about that. Below is actually a picture of me smoking a cigar and a smoker's jacket that our owner gave us. And then to the right-hand side is us at a kangaroo farm, which is only about 45 minutes south of Louisville. So I've been with JNL for over 12 years. I am the president here. I work with most of our key OEMs, as well as major accounts, as well as other additional industries. Really excited to talk to you guys today about recall marketing. What's been great about recall is I've been able to take my expertise in event marketing that we've done here at JNL over the last 30 years and really take in some of the new components of digital marketing and put something together that's going to get an incredible ROI. So a little bit about JNL Marketing. Some of you guys might not be familiar with us, but we've been in the industry for over 30 years. We're Google partner status, we're Bing status, Microsoft, Facebook marketing partner status, as well as Reynolds & Reynolds CDK certified. But what we're going to talk today is some specific things to help you out as a dealership. So whenever we're talking here, you got to think about a good marketing plan comes up with these three key components. Number one, data. We're going to talk a little bit about recall, where to get the data, how to cleanse the data, how to make sure it's accurate. Number two, we're going to talk about a marketing strategy. The days of just sending out a direct mail piece and hoping people come in for recall, that's over. For recall customers, majority of the customers that you're going to be marketing to are owners. They have ignored 10, 15 mailers of manufacturers. So it's so important that we have an intelligent marketing strategy. And then number three is, how can we manage this? I'm going to walk you guys through what your creative should look like on direct mail, email, what your landing page should look like, what your strategy should be for Facebook and Instagram marketing. So the first question that I get a lot from people is, okay, Jamil, that makes sense. Where do I get this recall data? Now, I've worked with most dealerships across all manufacturers, and most of it is as very easy as asking. So your manufacturers that you work with, they source this data. So for instance, I know that a large domestic partner of ours sources it from Experian, Equifax. Another more luxury gets the data from Urban Science as well as Experian. So these manufacturers are already paying for this data. So the first thing that you need to do is you just need to reach out to the manufacturer. But why is it so important to target these recall customers? So I want you to think about this for the second, whether you're doing marketing on the sales side or the service side. This is one of the only few marketing that you can do where you guarantee revenue from 100% of the people that respond, and it costs the consumer nothing. I want you to think about that. 100% of the people that respond, you're going to get an ROI from, because they're going to come in, they're going to get their recall completed, and you're going to get paid from the manufacturer. And then to the customer, it's a huge value added because they're not coming out of pocket. So in the end, it's a win-win-win for everybody, for you, the dealership, and as well as for the consumer. So let's talk a little bit about what are the results. So everything that I'm about to show you is based off of these results that I have up on this screen. So we did 46 recall campaigns for a luxury manufacturer. These data comes from the manufacturer. Average customer spent $830 customer pay. Now I get it, it's a luxury manufacturer, so it's a little bit higher. 460 warranty per RO on average. 138,000 average total service revenue per dealer. 370 completions were done by the dealer over a 60-day period. And on the days of the campaign that we narrowed it in, 1, 2, 3 days, we had 40 attendees per 1,000 customers targeted to. So, we've been in business for 30 years. And one of the reasons why I'm so excited to show you this is we haven't seen these types of results on any service campaign. I don't care what it is, service reminder program, service clinics, even new owner loyalty clinics. We've never seen a response rate this high. So I talked about this a little bit earlier. Where can we source this data? And I'm going to give you 3 ways to get it. The best one and the cheapest is directly from your manufacturer. So whether you have a zone manager, an area manager, or you can reach out to the region and reach out to them, say, I want to target recall customers. Here are the recalls that I want to target. Make sure you know which ones you want to target. And they should be able to provide you a list. They're already buying this data from the IHSs, the Experian of the world. Why pay for something that you can get for free? For some manufacturers like BMW, they actually built a tool for you to pull this data on your own. So make sure that you're kind of talking to your manager. Let's just pretend for a second you strike out. You're not getting in front of the right people. The second area is to mine your DMS. There's 2 ways to do it. Either A, you can mine it yourself. You can mine your DMS and you can identify, here are the recalls that I want to go after, and we can target those customers, and there should be a tool that you can bounce it off of with the VEN. Or number 2, there are companies out there that if you can take your whole DMS, you upload your DMS, and they'll give you a match back that shows you everybody that's in your DMS and who's under a current recall and what that recall is. Now that does cost money, so that would be option number 2. The most expensive option, and if you really, really wanted to do it, you could, would be to go directly to these data providers, whether that's Recall Masters, whether that's Experian, whoever it is, you can buy Conquest data. That's the last option I would recommend because number 1's free and it's very accurate. Number 2's not as costly. Number 3's going to cost you a lot of money for that data. So what should happen is once you get this list, preferably from your OEM as well as your DMS, you're going to want to do some hygiene. I've done probably hundreds of these now across the country, and the data is not clean. So even though that manufacturer assigns that customer to your store, you're going to want to bounce it off of postal software. You're going to want to bounce it off and look at how far away that customer is from your dealership. Believe it or not, we could be running with a dealership in Southern California, and we have people in Texas and New Jersey. So you want to do some basic data hygiene. Pro tip, don't throw away bad email addresses and phone numbers, and you'll know why later. Most data field sets that you're going to get from your manufacturer, that one customer is going to have 3 phone numbers, 4 phone numbers, as well as multiple emails. Don't just keep those fields because we're going to need that later on. Goal is to have a clean list, target a few thousand customers, 3,000 to 4,000 customers, depending on how many recalls you go after, that are likely to respond to your offer, and of course, own your brand. Now, one dealership did ask me if I wanted to target people and ensure that they still own that. If it is somebody from your DMS, IHS Polk has a way of doing, it's called their SKU data or their VEN transfer data. You can take a DMS list as long as you have the last transaction date at your dealership, whether it's service or sales. We can bounce that data off of it and we can show if that customer still owns that vehicle. But if you're sourcing the list from your manufacturer, that work's probably already been done. So let's talk about good recall marketing. So one of the ways that I've found the most success in recall marketing is to host some type of event, something that's special. Well, why is that? Well, number 1, they've ignored the 10 notifications from you. Just come in, right? So we want to do something that's a little bit different. So what I always try to do is, hey, on these 2 to 3, 4 or 5 days, we're going to targeting you. We're going to bring customers in, and in an hour and a half or less, get your recall repair done. So that hits on number 2 is we want to make it convenient for customers. A lot of studies have came out that one reason why people don't get their recalls done is they're scared of being without a car. They don't even want to pick up the phone. They don't know that loaners and stuff are available. So what we want to do is try to pick recalls that you can get done in an hour, hour and a half or less, so the customer can wait if they'd like to get that done. Again, it's a different message. Come in, get your safety recall repaired, be out in and out inside of an hour, hour and a half. The third thing that is you got to hit them in multiple channels. The days of just sending a direct mail piece or just an email and hoping that you're going to get a good response is over. So what I'm going to walk you through is all of the different channels that we want to market to them. Now you might say, hey, Jamil, this is too much for me to do. If you can get 2 or 3 things from this webinar today that you can maybe implement, even if it's you doing a text message to customers or you may be doing Facebook or Instagram to recalls, it's a win. So I'm going to walk you through all that information. So let's talk about our funnel. If I was to do it in a perfect world and I wanted the results that I showed you guys earlier with that BMW store, what am I going to do, right? How do I get 40, 50 people in on per 1,000? So if I target 3,000 customers, how do I get over 120? Well, you're going to want to set up your marketing funnel. And this is what the one I would recommend. You can screenshot it if you want. This is the one that we would execute. Is you're going to want to send out a direct mail piece to everybody. You're going to want to send an email out. The key on email, though, send it to every email address you have. So in that OEM file feed that I talked about, don't look at what the OEM thinks is their best email. If there's 3 or 4 emails, email to all. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about Facebook. Facebook, you're probably saying, how do you target somebody on Facebook? I'm going to show you technology on Facebook where you can take your recall list that you got from the manufacturer, upload it to Facebook and Instagram, and target them one-to-one, very similar as an email. We're going to text the customers. So what's great about text messaging, guys, is they don't have to opt in. This is a safety notification. This is one of the few times that you can text a customer without them ever opting in. It's a safety notification, no different than a hurricane coming to South Florida. You know, the state of Florida can send out a mass text message saying, please evacuate your homes. This is the same thing. For most of these recalls, they are safety. So you can send a text message out, which has great results, as you can imagine. Ringless voicemails, we'll talk about those in a little bit. That's another great option for you to get customers to respond. And then nothing beats hammering the phones, right? Picking up the phone and targeting these customers. But notice, I'm not doing outbound phone calls 1 month and then 3 months later doing text messages. It's all going hand in hand together because the goal is they've ignored those separate channels. We want to bombard this customer in pretty much a 7 to 10 day period to get them in the next week, week and a half to get that recall repaired. To do this effectively, I want an easy way for the customer to RSVP for this. All right, so you're going to have to work with your BDC department on this. Now, or you could use a company like J&L where we have an on-site BDC. But you're going to want an easy way. I always typically recommend give them 2 options. Either give them by the phone or give them a landing page that's very easy for the customer to RSVP for our event that we're going to be having specifically on getting these recalls done. Then we're going to take them through a confirmation process. Rule of thumb, if it's a web lead, always get back to that customer inside of an hour. Okay? Once that customer goes on, says these are my preferred date and times to attend, make sure we're following up with them inside of an hour. If it's a phone call, make sure that that number that you have listed on that invitation goes directly to somebody that knows about this, because the customer is going to have questions. They're going to want to know, hey, I'm calling about this. I just got this in the mail. I just got this in my email box. I just got a text message. And then on those 3 to 5 days, however long you want to do it because of COVID, what I always recommend is pick days and times that you're not busy. So late afternoon hours, if you've slowed down on the weekends because of COVID, do it then. Don't let this take away from your normal business. What's great about recalls is it's icing on the cake. It allows you to get more and more parts revenue, warranty work, customer pay, and not take away from existing. I'm going to walk you guys through some steps of how to handle the traffic on that day, especially during COVID, and then also a process to follow up with people that don't show. So right here is I put together the whole marketing funnel. Screenshot, take whatever you want. This is what we've seen to work very, very well. So let's talk about what your direct mail piece should look like. So if I was to do direct mail, what would I do and what would it look like? Well, I'm showing you a copy of what our direct mail piece looks like. So the first thing that I'm going to mention to the customer is I'm going to mention in bold what their vehicle recalls for, what is it for? So make sure you're doing some type of variability. Number two, I would recommend that you do something that's in a more of a plain envelope. We've seen higher response rates from a plain envelope due to they've already received something from the manufacturer. They've already got something from Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Audi. So we've seen a little bit better success with that plain envelope with a real stamp on the outside. Number three, a lot of our dealerships have seen success giving an offer, an additional bonus. So what we do typically is, hey, we'll give you $15 gas card or a $15 MasterCard for taking time out of your day, driving to our dealership, waiting for that hour and a half, and then going home. It's 15 bucks. It doesn't cost you much. You'll make so much more money on just the recall repair, let alone. I would definitely do something. The law of reciprocation is very important in getting people out of their houses, especially during COVID, is getting harder and harder. So I would definitely do some type of gift for attending. If you're a luxury store and you have something in your boutique of good value and it helps you hit some bonus, do that as well. Inside there, a lot of our dealerships will offer some type of offer of maybe an inspection. Now that can be optional if the customer doesn't want to do it. Most of our dealerships want to obviously get customer pay revenue, so they go ahead and they always do that inspection on 100% of the cars. That allows you to be able to potentially upsell the customers and get that customer pay revenue that we talked about earlier. Have a process from service to sales. They're going to be there for an hour and a half just waiting around. So it's very common that during one of these, you'll sell 2, 3 to 4 cars. So have a process that as the customer is just sitting there, that maybe it allows them to take out one of the vehicles out for a drive, maybe to go run an errand or something to potentially sell vehicles off of this. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about social. So now that we've sent out a direct mail piece, well, how can we target these customers socially? This is, again, another best practice that you guys can do on your own. You don't have to use an agency like J&L. So what you can do is you can take that same spreadsheet that you downloaded from your manufacturer that they gave you. That's going to have first name, last name, physical address, email addresses, phone numbers. It's going to be in an Excel file. You go into your Facebook business account, you click on create audiences right there, and I circled it for you. And you go in there and you upload your CSV file. It's as easy as that. Facebook makes it very easy. And then what you do is you map the fields. This is email, this is phone number, and so on. All right. From that, what will happen is you'll update it and create, and Facebook will then show that you matched. So keep in mind what Facebook is doing is you're uploading a list with addresses, emails, phone numbers, and they're able to find these people. Now, it used to be a few years ago, Facebook would show you what that match rate was, and it was right around 65% that they could find. They got rid of it a couple of years ago, but all indications from our Facebook reps is it's right around that, okay? Now, they will give you some information on what your reach is gonna be, but typically expect about a 60 to 70% match rate. So that means if you have 10,000 recall customers, for easy math, that 6,000 of them, you would be able to serve Facebook and Instagram ads too. And then create your ad. So I'm going to show you some examples of copy as well as imagery that's worked really well for us. Number one, I prefer carousel ads for a lot of these. It gets attention. We do a lot of animated ads as well in Facebook, but make sure that your call to action, your CTA, is right there in the ad copy before they even press the see more button. We're explaining to the customer that it's all about recalls. If you can take them to a landing page that maybe even has where they can check their VIN, even better, but it should be all around recall. So whether you're doing a recall event or not, This is a strategy you throw $300-400 to. That's it. That's all you need for a list of maybe 3,000 or 4,000. You can do one-to-one targeting. You can do it in Instagram as well. So Instagram is owned by Facebook. You can do it in the same ad serving platform. As a best practice, I recommend always break it up. Have Instagram have their own ads as well as Facebook. Instagram, you're going to want to do a little bit different sizing as well as a little bit different copy. But I would do the exact same process for Instagram. So again, you've pulled the list from your manufacturer, you've cleaned the list, you've now uploaded it to Facebook and Instagram, and we're sending out a direct mail piece as well. For email, I would work with your agency on creating an email campaign. I'm a big fan of drip campaigns. So don't think that you can just send one email out and people will respond. So typically on average, if I were to do this campaign, I would send out my first email about a week, maybe 8 to 9 days before the event, kind of telling them about it. That's probably right when the mail would drop, right around a week before my event that I'd want to do everything first class. And then I'd have another email go to customers maybe 2 to 3 days prior to the event for people that have not RSVP'd yet. So make sure that you're deduping your list against each other. The people that RSVP'd don't get a reminder email. Let's talk a little bit about text. Text we've seen huge engagement out of. And while text is a little bit more expensive than email, relatively speaking, you're talking less than 8 cents, right? The best practices for text is very simple. Be specific in your text. So I screenshotted one of our text message here. The more variability that you can put in your text, the better, the less phony it looks. So what I would recommend is make sure that you say recall alert on your BMW. This is an important message from, put the name of your dealership. As consumers, we get calls every day from these aftermarket warranty companies. We don't want this to look fraudulent. We want this to look credible. Put variability in there for your year, make, and model. So any agency that you work with that does text messaging should be able to do this where they can input those variabilities. Put a phone number as one of your call to actions. We'll talk about that in a second. But then also, if you're using a landing page, give them a landing page as well. So just to put this in perspective, when we did our campaigns, not only did our BDC see a significant increase in phone calls right when this text message out, about 30% of all of our leads on our landing page came from text, believe it or not. So people just clicking it on their phone while they're at work and RSVPing. So, and then obviously, just as a safeguard, you need to always put reply stop. So customers, while they don't have to opt in to get the message, once they do say stop, then you no longer can text them from that number. So there's just an FYI, it's a standard protocol that you're always going to want to do. Couple tips. When you send out these text messages, you're going to get a huge influx of phone calls. So whether you're using an agency with their BDC or whether you're doing it in-house, make sure your BDC is aware of that. Because what will happen is everyone's going to get the text in a similar period. They're going to hover their finger over that number and they're going to call you instantly. So one thing that we have done is you can kind of send your text messages out throughout the day. So that way you won't have a ton of messages or a ton of calls all at once. Another strategy to get recall customers in is ringless voicemails. This is something that we've done and it's been successful. It is a voicemail that goes to somebody's phone that they listen to where it never rings. So the message that you leave needs to be very specific and very engaging. Obviously mention to them what dealership you're from, why you're calling in reference to a safety recall, and the number then call back. What happens though more than not, guys, is people don't listen to their voicemails. So what they do is they press that callback number. We all know it, we all do it, right? So again, similar to text messaging, even more important on ringless voicemails, make sure your BDC is prepared. I had one dealership that tried to use their own BDC And when the ringless voicemails dropped, their BDC got, 20, 25 phone calls in an hour, hour and a half. So make sure your BDC is prepared for that, or whatever agency you're working for, their BDC, and make sure that they have a good script. When that customer calls back, the BDC is going to say, yes, I was calling you in regards to your recall. We'd like to schedule you in for XXYZ. Creating a landing page. Landing pages are successful. At the end of the day, they are. They're extremely successful, especially for any type of event or something that you're wanting to do that's personalized. So I'd recommend creating a landing page. Give the customer another option. One of the mistakes that I see a lot of dealerships is they try to use their online scheduling tool. And even Xtime, that's one of the best out there. If you're not a previous customer of your dealership, just creating another username and password can be cumbersome. So create personalized landing pages, pearls, right, where it autofills the customer's information in, and then instantly allows the customer to register right then and there, and those leads go to your BDC. Make sure that you have a clear picture of what your results are. Keep track of it on a daily basis. One area that some of our dealerships get in trouble with is parts availability. So some of the tips that I would give you is, before you target these customers, make sure you go through each one of these recalls and you have that parts availability. Monitor your appointments every night. We send an email every day letting our dealerships know this is how many appointments that you have. Review over that, because it's so important to make sure that you have availability for parts. Also, be prepared that just because you targeted that customer for this one recall, that they don't have 3 or 4. So have loaner cars available. We did a great DWIN podcast on LinkedIn, where we had a service director for a BMW store in the Northeast, and he mentioned having loaner cars available and the importance of that, because if they do have 4 or 5, or if they want to say yes to a high transaction value for customer pay, put them in maybe even a rental car if it's $50 a day, what have you. One thing that I would suggest to you guys is you nominate somebody at the dealership to control or manage this. So we call them our on-site event coordinators. So if you're going to do it on your own, nominate somebody at your dealership. If you use somebody like us, we would send somebody out there. But what this person's going to do is, you're going to have your everyday traffic in your recall, is to kind of organize everything, where she or he is working with your advisors, your sales team, checking customers in, checking them off, maybe asking some good probing questions to make sure that we handle all of their needs. Keep in mind, this list is a lot of conquest customers. So this is our first chance at a good impression with these customers, or a second chance at our first impression. Maybe we've lost these customers before. So make sure that we have a really good process, because this is our opportunity to win back or gain a new customer. So I put on the screen here, you can screenshot it if you'd like. What are some of the questions that we ask when we're checking into customers? Obviously, what the customer's information is, what type of, where are they currently getting their car serviced? Is there anything while the car's back there that they want our advisor or our technician to look at? Big key is doing a walk around with the customer. Don't skip over the inspection process, because that's vital. There's nothing worse from a consumer or an owner of a car's perspective than bring your car to a dealership to get a recall done, and then a month later learning your brakes were bad, your tires were bad. The first thing that goes in your mind is, I was just in there, why didn't they tell me? So make sure you follow kind of the process that you would typically, and don't do any shortcuts with these customers. And then one thing that happens is, we're done with the event, we're done with the program, we stop marketing to them. Highly suggest that you do something after the event to continue to market to these customers. So a lot of our dealerships have had success of saying, well, hey, this recall message didn't appeal to them. Let's just do a blanket service discount to anybody that didn't attend the event or come in for the campaign. Let's do a 15% off program. Let's do anything that's going to drive them back in, and then we'll get the recalls completed once they come in. So think a little bit outside the box. Have a process to do the calls to the people that did not show. On average, you have about a 30 no-show rate, 30% no-show rate for a campaign like this. So I have a process to kind of follow up with those customers as well. Last but not least, this is a good conquest list. Think about it. Instead of you paying for a vendor or an IHS to buy data of Honda owners in your PMA, this is your best conquest list. Use this list for all of your service marketing because they're known Honda owners, they're known Toyota owners. So utilize it. I've even had dealerships use it on the sales side. Now, obviously, you can't mix a sales effort with recall, but it is known Honda owners that why not include them on some marketing on the sales side? You just can't mention the word recall, but you can still dedupe the list against your database. All right, so let me open up the chat here. I'm gonna leave you guys with my email address. Mine is zabane@jnlmarketing.com. If you have any questions about the program, you want the deck sent to you, you'd like to go over it, go to learn@jnlmarketing.com. Everything that I showed you today, you could do on your own. And hopefully that was the goal of the webinar, was for you to look at it and kind of look at it from a different lens. Oh, I've been banging my inactive customers. What if I did something different? What if I did something unique for recall customers? Well, how would I put that together? So hopefully you learned some stuff, whether it was on text messaging, ringless voicemails, direct mail, email, how to put it all together in a campaign. If you like what you saw today and you say, hey, that's just too much work for me to do it on my own, when you email learn@jnlmarketing, mention to get your $500 off, and we will give you $500 off of one of our campaigns. So if you like what you saw today and you'd like to sit down and talk a little bit more of how we could do this at your dealership, email learn@jnlmarketing.com to get your $500 off. If you have any questions or anything, please put them in the chat. I have a couple direct messages here, trying to skim through them real quick. If there's any other chats, please feel free to put it in there. One person asked me to buy a recall list. How expensive is that? You know, it depends on the provider. I've heard as low as 45, 50 cents a name to 60, 65 cents. It can be very, very expensive, which is why I'd highly suggest you reach out to your manufacturer to get that list for free. A cheaper option would be appending your DMS. That can be a lot more affordable. That's, you know, less than 15 cents a name. But again, that still adds up if you're dropping a list of 5,000 customers. Somebody asked about national change of address. The do not call list. For text messaging, that's somewhat irrelevant because it's a safety notification. So you're just uploading the email, the cell phone numbers in there. We have a way to cleanse that. So it removes the landlines, and then you're sending out all the text messages to the customers. You're working with the carriers, whether that's Sprint, T-Mobile, Verizon. So that's not a big deal. For the ringless voicemail, you should, even though you don't have to technically do it, we do typically bounce that off of the do not call list before we go ahead and send that out. One person asked about email hygiene. I would recommend doing some type of email hygiene. I use a company called Data Validation for my email hygiene for all my campaigns. You can go on their website, it's Data Validation. Essentially the way it works is I upload a list. So before I send an email out for any dealerships, so I upload that list to Data Validation. It scores the email addresses from A, B, C, D. I only send it to typically the A's and B's. And that's going to help you get into more inboxes and less junk folders. Great questions. Any other questions before we log off? All right. Well, thank you guys so much for your time today. Again, email us at learn@jnlmarketing.com if you need any more information. Talk to you all soon.